Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is the day 14 of our MS Excel journey and we are in the process of learning the MS Excel from the very basics. In the previous video, I have told you the functions such as concatenate and the proper and trim function using which you can organize your data in a clean and neat manner. Today, we'll go and see what do you mean with the absolute and the relative references. References are very important whenever we use any formula. Sometimes we need to give a fixed reference, that is absolute reference, rather than the relative reference so that we get the result we require. If we put a relative reference in the place where we have to put absolute references, we end up getting error and the formula does not get the result which you require. Today we look in detail from the very basics how can we use the references while working in the MS Excel worksheet. We'll go directly into the MS Excel and see how can we do that. Now if you see in front of you is a screen where the quantity and the rate is supposed to be entered. Now suppose the quantity is entered and you are now required to put the rate in the C column and get the amount in the D column by using the formulas. Here there are only 10 line items, that is we can go on typing 50 or we can just put 50 and use the autofill and get the data for the rest of them, and we can do the same. But what if there's a huge amount of data and also the rate is not 50 for everything? Now for the basic for understanding from the basics, I have taken an example of flat rate of 50% so that we can get to know what is the absolute reference and what do we mean by a relative reference. So over here, one method to do it is just come over here, type 50 and again place the cursor on the cell and double click at the bottom. Then just give a formula over here, that is equal to quantity into rate and press enter and again double click over here and we get the result which we require. We can also put it in our numbers by using the comma and we get the result. Now this was by using the relative reference, that is we are changing the reference from one cell to another, that is you can see that the reference is not fixed, rather it is moving from one cell to another. Now there is another method to do it, that is I'll just take away the C values written at the C column and tell you how can we do that. Another method to do it is just come over here, type is equal to and give the reference to the H cell, and that is reference to the value where the rate is mentioned. Here it is mentioned in H1, so I put the reference to H1 and press enter. Now what do you think if I just double click at the bottom of the cell, will I get the values I require? Let's check it out. I come over here and double click at the bottom of the cell and you see that I am getting 000 from my second serial number. Why am I getting 0? Let's go and check it out. I come over here and if I want to know where is this data fetched from or from where is this reference given, I just press F2 and I see that it's given from H1. I press enter. Now in the second serial number, that's in the second row, I see that if I press H2, the reference is given to H2, that is the field where the 50 is written just below that. But over there, the rate is not mentioned and so it's coming as 0. So same goes further. Your reference keeps on moving one cell below the cell whenever we don't give a fixed reference over there, fixed or absolute reference over there. So what do I need to do is just come over here, click on the H1 and press F4. When I press F4, you see that there's a dollar sign inserted in between the numbers and the alphabet. I press enter and now if I double click on it, you see that I'm getting 50 everywhere because I have fixed or provide an absolute reference, that is I want the value for my h1 itself. I don't want it to move when it goes one below the other. I am getting the values now as I require. There is another method to do that. That is, if I don't need to put the rate, I can directly multiply the quantity into rate. What I need to do is come over here, put is equal to into 50 and into 100 into 50, that is quantity into rate. I press enter, and now what do you think if I press the click at the bottom of the cell? Will you think that will I be able to get the answer which I require? I try it out, I click over here and I see that I am getting 0 at the below mentioned cell. Now over here the problem is that if I press S2 at my first serial number, I get the reference rightly, that is B3 where my quantity is present and H1 where the rate is present. But if I click the enter and come down, again if I press F2, I see that my quantity specified is right, that is B4, and the rate specified is H2. It is coming below the amount written as 50 and there the value is 0, and so it's giving the answer result as 0. What do I need to correct it? I need to just give an fixed or an absolute reference at the first column or first column of the table itself, that is at my first serial number. I come over here, click on the cursor at my H1 and again press F4 and make it a fixed reference, and I press enter, and now if I give a double click over here, you see that I am getting the values I require. If I just come over here and press F2, you see that it's coming as B7 into H1, that is my H1 is not moving while going from one cell to another because I have provided an absolute reference or fixed the reference to that particular cell itself. Now over here, if you are wondering that I can just give the absolute reference for the H1, that is I need to put the absolute reference for entire H1, you are wrong. You no need to put the absolute reference for entire H1, rather you can just put it for one in the combination of two. That is, when I'm telling H1, it is H column and first row. I need not fixed or provide an absolute reference to H1 itself. I can just give an absolute reference to H column and keep the one moving as well. Now if I come over here and if I type a value over here as 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and now when I come over here, I just double click on it, and to provide the reference only to one of the column or cell, I need to press F4 again, and you see that now only one is provided with a dollar sign. That means my row is fixed and my H column is not fixed. That is, if I come over here and simply drag it to my right, I see that over here the reference given is not H1, rather it is I1. If you see over here, it is C3 into I1. That is, my columns are moving because I have not fixed it yet. Now if I want to give it to my absolute reference to my row, I just need to press F4 again, and you see that now my H column is fixed and the row is not fixed. To give an example, I press enter and I simply double click over here, and you can see that now the reference given over here is the quantity into the H2 column, that is not the previous 50 rupees but the 20 rupees which is below my 50 rupees. I come here and again press F2 and I see that the reference is given to the next cell over there. By using the F4, you can provide a fixed or absolute reference to both the cell and the row, or only to a row and not the column, or only to a column and not the row. This was the use of the fixed or absolute or relative reference in the MS Excel journey. If you have watched the video till the end, I am sure that you have understood the relative and the absolute reference and you will be using it further. This was it for the day. I'll see you all in the next video. Till then, keep smiling and have a good day. If you have liked my video or understood what I have taught, share it with your friend, subscribe and hit the bell icon to never miss any learnings in the MS Excel. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.